Welcome to my scientifically informed insider look at mental health topics. Today's question asks if I can take a look at the characteristics of a wife who's narcissistic. The idea here is the expectations are that the couple will stay together, support each other, and work to meet common goals. Some of the things that we would expect from a long-term relationship. There, of course, are a lot of signs. I'm focusing here on the narcissistic behaviors that would be directly observable by the husband. So what is narcissism? With vulnerable narcissism, we see characteristics like being distrusting, feeling insecure, being resentful, having a lot of shame, being hypersensitive to criticism, being defensive, cold, distant, unforgiving, and having internalized anger. So moving right into the list with characteristic number 1. This is a continuous sense that the wife is disappointed. His contribution or lack of contribution to household chores, interactions with the children, his motivation, his educational level. So really, in many ways, if not in every way, the wife is putting the husband down. And this really fits into this narrative that the wife puts forth, that she's a victim of a bad marriage, a bad husband. Number 2, the wife tends to take sides against the husband by default. So she assumes the worst of the husband. She has a lot of distrust for him. Now moving on to number 3. Number 3 involves the fantasies of success, power, wealth, and other factors that we see with narcissism. Now, narcissistic fantasies extend into the future most of the time, but they can also be in the present and in the past. This is one of those kind of unusual angles that we see here with these fantasies. So the fantasy could actually be going back in time and marrying somebody more worthy, a better lover. Fantasies are often about undoing something that somebody regrets. And we often see that reflected in the phrases that are used. Phrases like, I never should have settled. I should have listened to my family members, who I guess would have said not to marry the husband. And with the future-oriented fantasies, we see that the wife is clear that if the fantasy could ever come true, she's gone. The marriage is over. She's not even pretending that there's a good relationship between the couple. Now, what's interesting about these fantasies as well is that if the husband is doing something that supports one of the wife's fantasies, she gets along with the husband. So she gets along with him when he's working toward one of her fantasies. Number 4 is that the husband is paying for the sins of others. So what do I mean by this? Well, we see that in a lot of cases when people are narcissistic, they experience some sort of maltreatment when they were younger. So maltreatment from a prior husband, prior boyfriend, parent, other relative, whoever it was in the case of the wife who has narcissistic traits. Every problem the wife has becomes the husband's fault. He is assigned all the blame. The husband, in a sense, becomes a composite of all those wrongdoers. And with his actions, whether they are right or wrong, they represent all the bad things that happen to the wife. So he represents the wrongdoers, and his actions represent all the bad occurrences. It's like when people take their anger out on a punching bag. The punching bag never did anything to anybody, but it's still going to pay. It's still going to pay for all that anger. So an example here could be somebody in the wife's past. So the way she kind of expresses this in terms of relationship with the husband, the narrative that the wife paints has always been one where they're both hurting each other, but unequally, right? She has the worse end of the deal. So if she gets caught with this bad behavior, she says, okay, for right now, this just makes us even. And this is typically the most blame that the wife will ever accept, regardless at what point in the marriage that we're looking at. Number 5 is that there's no true connection in the marriage. So the wife is emotionally distant and callous. We see that when the wife is confronted, when she's asked to talk about emotional topics, she dodges them. She avoids depth, or more likely is incapable of connecting deeply. And she gets frustrated. So there's just really no room to move. There's no room to move more deeply. The wife gets stuck in the narcissism, right? It's a block to moving into an emotionally fulfilling and close relationship. Moving number 6, we see here the wife prevents the husband from making friends, venting frustrations, or seeking support. So specifically on that venting frustrations piece, the prevention tactic here is that the wife starts complaining, right? So she counter complains every time the husband complains. So that just shuts down the venting of frustrations. Now, in terms of the friend component, if the husband does make a friend, this friend is labeled a loser. Really, this is just an isolation tactic, and if the husband tries to criticize one of the wife's friends, then he's being controlling. So we see a really clear double standard here. Now, speaking of double standards, this brings me to item number 7. We see here a double standard when it comes to self-improvement. So if the husband suggests to the wife that she could change some behavior, that a change might be good for the relationship, he gets this strong negative reaction and blame shifting, making it about the husband instead of about the wife. So the wife really takes no ownership of her behavior, and there's no conceding that there may be a benefit in changing her behavior. So again, we don't really see the wife giving any ground. She does not or cannot recognize the negative impact this has on the husband, because to the wife with narcissistic traits, the husband is not a real person. Number 8, making the husband feel guilty for wanting to be intimate. I see this all the time in couples where one of the members is narcissistic. And this is beyond the simple sex drive differential that we see in a lot of relationships. This is really something that's designed to isolate the husband and contribute to a strong feeling of loneliness, like we see in several of these different behaviors. Number 9 is threatening to leave, threatening to pursue like financial support in family court, to destroy the husband financially, to take the house, to take the cars, to take the kids, to take the dog, whatever it is, to take everything, right? So it's kind of a scary threat because, of course, the prospect of divorce and dividing material assets is scary, right? It makes sense that people would be afraid of that. So this is actually a fairly effective method of manipulation because this threat of hurting him financially and hurting his reputation is, again, very strong. It's a powerful threat, and it's used to eliminate scrutiny. It's really a distraction technique. And this moves us to number 10 on the list, thoughtlessness. So there are many examples of thoughtlessness in these type of relationships. We see like not getting gifts on special days like Christmas or Valentine's Day or the husband's birthday, or buying gifts that show little thought. If the husband expresses any type of negative sentiment about these gifts, like if he dislikes the gifts, he gets a strong reaction. So really, he's discouraged from doing that. Now, the paradox about this lack of thoughtfulness is that the husband can see the thoughtfulness that he would want. It's the thoughtfulness that the wife directs at herself. So the husband sees it all the time. It's on display clearly in this relationship, but no part of that is for him. So in a sense, the wife looks capable. She knows how to be thoughtful, but she's choosing not to invest any effort or caring in the marital relationship. So those are the 10 characteristics of a wife with narcissistic traits. As always, I hope you found this description of narcissistic behaviors to be interesting. Thanks for watching.